Hi there, I'm Stephanie, and this is Headlines and Tidbits, the podcast that brings the forgotten, the bizarre, and the downright unbelievable back to life from the dusty corners of old newspapers. Each episode is split into two parts. First, I'll share a headline that caught my eye, something strange, unsettling, or just too odd to ignore, and walk you through the story behind it, who it involved, what happened, and why it matters. Then I'll take you through some of my favorite tidbits, little gems from the past, scandalous divorce notices, eyebrow-raising ads, oddball local stories, the kind of things that never made the history books, but still tell us about the world we came from. So settle in, we're about to take a journey through the pages of the past, one headline at a time. And this headline today reads, "The Mississippi Wild Man and His Wife." And it comes from the Bolivar County Democrat outside of Rosedale, Mississippi, and is dated February 19th, 1921. So below that headline is a photo of a man, a woman, and their approximately 2-year-old daughter. Now, the term wild man made me expect something, well, wilder, but the man looks surprisingly ordinary. He's wearing a hat, shirt, and a coat, and has a beard that's not particularly unkempt. His wife also looks relatively normal. Her hair's up in a neat style, and she's wearing a dress, maybe a little big on her, but clean and presentable. Keep in mind, though, that this photo was taken after they were given clean clothes. And honestly, their 2-year-old daughter looked the most wild. Her hair is a little crazy, but she's adorable. What really stopped me in my tracks was the caption under the photo. He caught her in a bear trap while she was stealing food and decided to keep her. A bear trap? It's hard to believe, right? But let's get into it. So our so-called wild man was Andrew Albert Simeon Parson, but he went by Albert. He was born in 1849 in Mississippi, but not much is known about his early life. We don't know the town or who his parents were. In 1905, Albert married a woman named Laish Bell Bostwick, and they would go on to have 9 children together. Laish was also born in Mississippi in July of 1878. So when they married, Albert was 56 and Laish was just 27. Now, I'm not entirely sure if she was the woman caught in the bear trap, but I'm going to take a wild guess and say yes. So in early January of 1921, heavy flooding along the Leaf River in Mississippi forced Albert, his wife, and their toddler daughter out of the swamps where they had been living for years. Locals near the village of Lux, a small community by the swamp, spotted the trio wandering out looking ragged and weathered. Many were terrified by their appearance, and they were quickly picked up by authorities and taken to the county poorhouse in Laurel, Mississippi. So side note, poorhouses were government-run facilities that were meant to house the destitute, sick, elderly, or mentally ill. They were often overcrowded and underfunded, but they were the last resort for people with nowhere else to go. But their appearance wasn't the only thing that stunned authorities. It was their story. So the story that they told was Albert, who claimed to be 72, told officials he had lived deep in the Leaf River swamp for over 2 decades. And he said the woman with him was his wife, and that's when things took a dark turn. Albert claimed that he caught her 23 years earlier in a bear trap. He said he believed a wild animal had been stealing food for him, so he set the trap. But he obviously did not catch a bear. Instead, he caught his future wife. And instead of letting her go, he decided to keep her as a companion. So I just have trouble picturing, like, what kind of injury did she walk away with? So she was about 50 years old at the time they were found, and she had scars all over her body, maybe from bear traps, I don't know. And she was apparently missing an eye, allegedly from a wild cat attack, which she herself confirmed. Why she was fighting a wild cat, no one knows. But when she was found, she was wearing only a tattered old dress. And Albert was wearing 2 pairs of trousers and a pretty torn up shirt. Now, their young daughter, she was completely unclothed when they came out of the swamp, despite the cold. So Albert said that they lived off the land. They were eating roots, berries, and trapped animals. They owned a blind horse they used to plow the fields. This story, everybody has a problem in it. Like, it's crazy. Their home was a ramshackle cabin, believed to date back to the Civil War. Local legend said that Confederate bushwhackers, who were also like guerrilla fighters, had once used that same spot to ambush Union troops. Locals had long whispered rumors about a mysterious family in the woods. The Parsons family had become sort of local folklore. They were hardly ever seen and kind of surrounded by myth. And so just another quick side note, stories of wild men were a popular newspaper trope in the early 1900s. They reflected both fascination with outsiders and fear of people living outside of society's norms. And so the one thing that the authorities kept going back to was the child. They weren't sure if the child was actually Albert and Laisha's. She was unscarred. She seemed to be well nourished, and she was surprisingly social. She would smile, reach out to strangers, showing none of the behaviors that one might expect from an isolated child. But the couple insisted that she was their biological daughter. But then a Red Cross worker named Miss Floyd Mabry came forward, and she said she had been in weekly contact with the couple and confirmed that the girl was biologically theirs. This, of course, though, raised more questions. Were they really isolated, or were they just kind of hiding in plain sight? And authorities, they were skeptical of Miss Mabry and said that they intended to investigate her claims. She also revealed that before vanishing into the swamp, the couple had lived a normal life in Jackson, Mississippi. Albert actually sold peanuts on the street. However, their world changed when their only son was killed in World War I. Miss Mabry said the government still owed them $1,500 in death benefits, and this loss may have triggered their withdrawal from society. Now, Albert wasn't very cooperative with the authorities. He dodged questions about the child and claimed to own the land that they lived on, but couldn't explain how. And oddly, despite their quote, wild story, some people speculated that Albert had mental health issues. Others thought that he was simply an eccentric man who chose a life off the grid. He told so many stories that nobody could really tell what was true. And there were even reports that Albert used a fork and knife, but his wife only ate with her hands. So I really wish we knew more about her story. She's really both of them, I guess. But she's just bear traps and missing eyes from fighting a wildcat. So there's obviously a lot of public fascination around this. The press had a field day. Stories of swamp dwellers, kidnappings, and feral children captured imaginations. The case hit on all the era's fascinations: wilderness, morality, poverty, mental illness, and survival. People were so intrigued that they traveled to the poorhouse just to see the family. But many left disappointed. They weren't as wild looking or inarticulate as people had imagined. And then the story just faded. And Albert died in Alabama in 1930. And Laish passed away in Alabama on July 16th, 1946. And no one really knows what happened in the years between. I tried searching their children and didn't get very far with that either. And this is just one of those stories that makes you wonder how many people were living just out of sight in the forgotten corners of the world. But that is the story of the wild man of Mississippi. Now we will get into the tidbits portion of the episode. And the first tidbit that we're going to talk about is a small little snippet from a newspaper in Duluth, Minnesota, and it is dated Sunday, April 25th, 1920. The headline reads, "Live Skunk, Newest Pet." And if you're just listening on audio, there is a girl holding a live skunk. So it says underneath, the caption is, "Miss Ulla Sharon with her live skunk. Even a skunk wants to be loved and appreciates affection. That's the conclusion at which Miss Ulla Sharon, celebrated dancer, has arrived. For 2 years, she has carried with her as an arm pet a tame skunk, which she obtained when it was a baby. She found it while dancing in the woods. She now uses Mickey, as she calls him, as a muff to match her skunk fur neck piece, which she is wearing above." That's a lot. So our next tidbit comes from the Denver Post. It is from 1922, and it has a picture of a leopard sitting in obviously what's a zoo. And the headline reads, "Leopards and wolves fight in the zoo. 2 leopards who occupied a cage in the Lion House in Central Park fought Wednesday night, and one of them was so badly injured that he will be in the hospital for some time. Yesterday, 2 wolves quarreled while they were being fed. One of them bit the other in the back, but did not cause serious injury." So, I guess that's not super odd. Animals can fight in zoos even nowadays. So here is another tidbit, and it's from the Denver Post, dated 1922. But the event, it actually takes place in Chicago. And the headline reads, "Tears don't kill germs, physician says after tests." So Chicago, June 1st. Reports that human tears contain properties which kill germs were declared to be without foundation by Dr. Herman Bundenson, Health Commissioner of Chicago, who Thursday has completed a 2 weeks laboratory test. In 3 test tubes containing 1/2 cubic centimeter of tears, Dr. Bundenson placed bacterial coli, diphtheria bacteria, and a staphylococci germs. The bacteria multiplied, he said. So don't drink your own tears. They won't save you. Okay, so our last tidbit comes from the Omaha Morning Bee out of Nebraska, and it is dated July 31st, 1922. And the headline reads, "Judge grants divorce to Marine, wed while drunk." All right. So, Detroit, July 31st. Sergeant Henry Brown testified he had married Pearl, recruiting office, has received an honorable discharge from matrimony. Judge Jane granted him an uncontested divorce from Pearl Brown. Brown testified he had married Pearl during a wild party at El Paso in 1916. I awoke one morning with a headache and a wife, he said. We lived together 3 months and then she ran away. I haven't seen her since. I love how they put these kind of divorce things in the newspapers back then. It makes me laugh. Well, I hope you enjoyed exploring these headlines and tidbits with me, and I hope you come back to listen to stories from newspapers of the past. See you next time.